The soft murmur of a jazz saxophonist drifted through the air, weaving between the clinking of silverware and the gentle clink of wine glasses. Candlelight shimmered across Lilith Ashford's perfectly manicured hand as she touched his wrist, her head tilting in that familiar gesture she reserved for when she craved full, undivided attention. She was mid-laugh, a sound like wind chimes, when her gaze snagged on the small, velvet-covered box. What she didn't know? I had placed it there, a silent phantom moving through the elegant chaos of the gilded fork. No one saw me. I ghosted past the maitre d', a specter of a man whose heart had already been laid to rest, returning only to deliver one final, devastating truth. Her laughter died. The brilliant smile that had captivated so many, including myself, fractured into 1,000 pieces. He, Arthur Landry, a man who carried himself with the tailored confidence of someone who ironed his ambition every morning, glanced from her to the box, then back, a question forming on his lips. He leaned in, whispered something, but Lilith was deaf to it. Her eyes were riveted on the unassuming ring box, as if it had clawed its way out of a forgotten nightmare, specifically to obliterate her perfectly constructed future. In a way, it had. Let me take you back, not years, but just enough to show you how Samuel Lee, a man on the precipice of a life I thought was real, ended up orchestrating the dramatic downfall of hers in a restaurant you typically book weeks in advance. 3 days earlier, everything shifted. Her phone, usually guarded like state secrets, pulsed to life on the dresser as she brushed her teeth. Instinct screamed at me to look away, but the preview text glowed with a single damning word. Tonight. The sender? Arthur. Here's what no one tells you about betrayal. It's not just the act. It's the emojis that shouldn't exist next to another man's name in your fiance's phone. That one? That one's a funeral pyre for your trust, burning everything you held sacred to ash. I didn't open the message, didn't say a single word. I just sat with it, the truth settling in my stomach like a stone. That silence, the deep, soul-splitting quiet that followed, was the real agony. Having to smile, to nod, to pretend nothing was shattering while every fiber of my being screamed for answers. So I made a choice. No shouting match, no pathetic begging, just a delivery. I arrived at the Gilded Fork 20 minutes before her reservation, a crisp $200 bill, and a practice story about a surprise anniversary twist secured me the exact booth. Table 12, corner, perfect lighting, an excellent vantage point of the jazz ensemble. It was her favorite. From the dimly lit bar, I watched them arrive. Lilith was luminous, a vision in the emerald dress I'd given her last Christmas. The one she swore made her feel dangerously elegant. She touched Arthur's arm with a soft familiarity that mirrored the way she'd once touched mine when we first fell in love. That was the deepest cut, not just the betrayal, but this callous recycling of intimacy, watching her bestow the stolen pieces of my devotion onto someone else. I waited until the appetizers were served. Then, a silent procession of one, I walked over, placed the small black box deliberately between their plates, as if it were an unexpected course, and walked away without a single word. But what came next? That changed everything. He followed me. Under the garish glow of the restaurant's neon sign, Arthur Landry spoke words that threatened to buckle my knees. He didn't rage. He didn't threaten. He simply stood at the curb, a few feet from me, idly adjusting the cuff of his sleek suit jacket as if we were about to discuss the weather. Up close, I barely recognized him. He seemed younger than my 32 years, sharper, utterly composed. I fought the urge to look back, to give him the satisfaction, but I lost. I turned, my voice surprisingly steady. "Why are you following me?" A slight smirk played on his lips. He glanced over his shoulder, a quick, almost imperceptible check for Lilith, before turning back to me. "You don't know, do you?" The question, delivered with the casual air of asking for directions, froze me. My voice, when it came, was a betrayal in its own right, A shaky whisper. Don't know what? She's still sleeping with her ex, he stated, his voice flat. I thought you should know. I stared at him, the words making no sense. What are you talking about? He shrugged, a gesture almost apologetic. I've been seeing her for 3 weeks. Didn't know about you. Definitely didn't know about him. Not until she slipped up and said the wrong name one night. The pavement beneath me tilted. My world lurched. Someone else. He nodded. Yeah, I'm not here to fight over her. Just wanted to see the guy who bought the ring. The one she talks about like he's this harmless, forgettable background character. You don't look harmless to me. His words stung, a raw, unexpected pain. Perhaps because I had felt like a background character for months. The one who did the dishes, the one who waited for texts, the one who conjured excuses for why her phone was always face down. She said I was forgettable, I asked. The words barely formed, a ghost of a whisper. She didn't use that word, Munrun, he corrected gently. But you know how it is. People say a lot when they think they're not being listened to. A surge of anger, cold and sharp, went through me. Not because he was rude, he wasn't. He was too calm, too collected, and that made it infinitely worse. It felt like he was delivering a eulogy for a relationship I hadn't even realized was already dead. Then he did something utterly unexpected. He pulled a neatly folded napkin from his coat pocket and held it out. I didn't want to take it, but he pressed it into my hand anyway. She wrote something on this when she went to the restroom, he said. I don't think she meant for me to see it. I unfolded it. Her handwriting, quick and messy, as if scrawled in a moment of panic, jumped out at me. Don't say anything about Caleb. He doesn't know Caleb. Caleb Wright, the name I'd only ever seen once years ago in an old social media comment. The ex she swore had moved away, the one she'd blocked in front of me to prove she was over him. Except she wasn't. I looked up, but Arthur was already walking away, hands in his pockets, shoulders relaxed, as if he'd merely returned a library book. No anger, no satisfaction. Just a man who wanted no part of a three-person tragedy. I stood there for a long time, clutching that napkin, holding the truth, bearing the immense weight of a relationship that had clearly collapsed in more ways than one. As city lights blurred around me, a realization hit me, more disturbing than the betrayal itself. I wasn't even angry. I was just tired. And that night, I decided I needed to know the whole, unvarnished truth for myself. But what I was about to discover would make betrayal look like mercy. Sleep was a stranger that night. My apartment, once a shared sanctuary, now felt like a museum of carefully curated lies. Her cashmere cardigan still draped over the couch, a phantom presence. Her rose-scented shampoo still lined up neatly in the shower, mocking the illusion of normalcy. The engagement ring box sat on my kitchen table, a cursed artifact. I thought about flinging it off my balcony, but I couldn't. Not yet. There was an unfinished symphony of deceit, scratching at the back of my mind like a splinter I couldn't quite reach. The napkin lay on the counter, a silent taunt. Don't say anything about Caleb. He doesn't know. That sentence, more than any other, shattered me. Not for what it said, but for what it implied. A hidden layer of deception I hadn't even begun to peel back. I opened my laptop, pulling up the shared cloud drive we'd used for wedding planning. I hadn't looked at it in weeks, maybe months. The last file she'd uploaded, innocently titled Reception Layout, Final Draft, No Changes Needed, now felt like a cruel joke. But then I saw it. A folder, buried 3 layers deep in another directory labeled Venue Photos, hidden in plain sight. It was called Portland. My stomach twisted into a knot. I clicked it open. Screenshots, messages, videos. At first, the images were a blur of incomprehensible data. One blurry video showed her in a hotel room mirror, whispering something, giggling. The man behind her wasn't Arthur. He wasn't even someone I recognized until I checked the file name. Caleb. Ponar right room 400 just MP4 The dates were brutally recent, less than 2 weeks ago. Lilith, my fiancée, had been in Portland. She'd told me it was for a client retreat, a crucial breakout session on brand culture, led by her boss, a woman named Megan. I remembered nodding, offering my full support, even helping her pick out the perfect carry-on bag. The nausea was overwhelming. The screenshots were even more agonizing. Saved chats, one from just last Friday. Caleb. Can't wait to wake up next to you again. That loser still think you're planning a wedding? Her reply. He's in love with the idea of me, not the real me. You're the only one who sees me. I closed the laptop, slumped back. No tears. Just a hollow emptiness, like a forgotten chair left out in the rain. Every word I'd ever spoken to her echoed. Every compliment, every "I trust you," every sacrifice I'd made to keep us going. And for what? A guy with a smirk, a guy with a plane ticket, and a guy from Portland. Here's the thing about hitting rock bottom. I didn't explode. I didn't scream or throw furniture. I grabbed my keys and drove. Not to her place. Not to Arthur's. I drove to the one person who might know the truth. The person I had never dared to contact until now. Her sister. She opened the door as if she'd been expecting me. Ilara Lockhart, Lilith's older sister, didn't flinch at my haggard appearance. Bloodshot eyes, 2 days of stubble, the blank stare of a man trying not to scream in public. We were never close, but Ilara always had this knowing look, as if privy to secrets I hadn't uncovered. Standing in her hallway now, I realized she always had been. She asked no questions. Instead, she held up the navy jacket I thought I'd lost months ago. You left this here last time you helped me fix my porch light, she said, her voice almost too gentle. I stepped inside. Her home smelled of rosemary and old books, the polar opposite of Lilith's meticulously curated world. Quiet, grounded, real. I know about Caleb, I said, bypassing any polite preamble. Ilara nodded once, not surprised, not shocked, just a profound resignation. Of course you do. She was sloppy this time. This time, I echoed, the phrase hanging in the air like a new terrible revelation. Ilara sighed and walked into the kitchen, motioning for me to follow. Look, Sam, I didn't want to get involved. I told myself it wasn't my business, but I hated watching you plan a future with someone who... She stopped, bit her lip. You deserve the truth. You always did. From a high cabinet, she pulled out an old shoebox, thick with dust, as if hidden for years. Inside were faded photos, scribbled notes, anonymous hotel key cards, flight stubs, names I didn't recognize. One note, dated in pink ink, read, March 11th, Santa Fe. Said she was visiting Mom. I couldn't speak. My mind reeled. Lilith had a pattern, a history. I'd believed Caleb was a one-time mistake, a shocking anomaly, but he was merely the latest entry on a grim list. She's been doing this since she was 22, Ilara said quietly. Never for the same reason. Sometimes for fun, sometimes for validation. She loves being wanted, Sam, but she doesn't know how to love anyone back. I sank heavily into a wooden chair, the one with the uneven leg that wobbled if you leaned too far left. Why didn't you tell me? Because I thought maybe she'd changed, Ilara whispered. You made her calmer, softer. But deep down, I knew it was only a matter of time. I hoped I was wrong. The worst part? I hoped she was wrong too. Even when the signs were all there, I clung to this fantasy version of Lilith. The one who used to kiss my shoulder in the middle of the night. The one who cried watching documentaries about stray dogs. But that version didn't exist. Not anymore. Maybe never did. She isn't capable of guilt, Ilara added, a chilling observation. But she is terrified of losing control. That was it. A cold, hard idea began to form in my mind. Not revenge, not a public meltdown, just the truth. Laid bare, in a way she couldn't twist, couldn't run from, and I knew exactly when and where I would do it. At our engagement party, the one she still planned to attend with Caleb, the venue was already paid for. Rustic lighting. Polished oak floors. Fake ivy twining along the ceiling beams. It was supposed to be the perfect setting for our engagement party. We'd put down the deposit 6 months ago, and Lilith had insisted we keep it, even after postponing once for a work trip. The irony now was a bitter taste. My initial impulse was to cancel everything, call the caterer, delete the guest list, vanish quietly. But the shoebox from Alara had changed something in me. It wasn't rage, not even pure revenge. It was clarity. I realized she would never tell the truth unless someone forced her to sit with it. So I kept the date. I texted her, "Let's keep Saturday, I want closure." Her reply, almost immediate, "Okay, I think that's mature of you." Mature, right. As if throwing away years of loyalty for hotel rooms and strangers was mature. The morning of the party, I barely recognized myself in the mirror. I'd shed 6 pounds in a week, hadn't shaved, and my dress shirt felt strangely loose in the shoulders. Still, I showed up early, setting everything up myself. Guests began to trickle in. Her cousins, my colleagues, a couple of old friends who probably assumed this was a romantic turning point. I let them believe it. Then she walked in. A cream-colored dress, elegant, expensive, utterly unbothered. On her arm, like a poorly kept secret, was Caleb. The Caleb. He looked bored already, scrolling through his phone as Lilith greeted people with a radiant smile, as if nothing were wrong. I let the music play. Let people get drinks, take photos. I made small talk, forced smiles when necessary. She waved at me once across the room, mouthing, "Thank you." I nodded. She thought I was thanking her for showing up. She had no idea what was coming. At precisely 6:45 p.m., I stepped up to the microphone. The room quieted faster than I expected. I tapped the mic, forcing a smile. "Thank you all for coming. I know you were expecting speeches about love and commitment and forever, but tonight I'd like to offer something else instead. Honesty." Her head tilted slightly, her smile still fixed, still playing the part. I continued. Relationships are built on trust, and lately I've been questioning what I thought I knew. I'm not perfect, but I always believed in us. That's why I'm returning something tonight. I reached into my coat pocket and held up the velvet ring box. Her smile faltered, a visible twitch. "But not just the ring," I said. "I'm returning the illusion, the silence, the one-sided loyalty." Then I opened the box. Inside, not the glittering diamond, but the napkin, the one with her hasty note to Caleb. Gasps rippled through the stunned crowd. Caleb stood abruptly, grabbing Lilith's arm. "You said," he began, but she cut him off, whispering something urgent, her face now a mask of frantic fear. "I wasn't finished," I stated, my voice calm, unwavering. "I've learned that secrets are like mold. They grow best in the dark." I paused, letting the words sink in. "And so let's shed some light." I reached under the podium and pulled out a thick folder. Not just screenshots, full printed records, booked flights, photos, timestamped calls. She had left a digital trail longer than our engagement. I placed it gently on the table in front of them, a silent accusation. "I don't need vengeance, I just need closure," I said. And then I walked out. But what happened after I left? That was something even I didn't expect. I was halfway to my car when the first text hit my phone. "We need to talk. Please don't do this." Seconds later, another. "You don't understand everything." And a third, "Please pick up. I'm begging you." I didn't answer. Not because I didn't want to, but because I knew she wasn't texting me. She was texting the version of me she thought still existed. The one who would cave, ask if she was okay, tell her I was willing to talk it through. That man hadn't survived the past 72 hours. I drove around for a while, aimlessly, needing to think in a space not haunted by our memories. When I finally pulled into a quiet diner on the edge of town, my phone rang again. The caller ID wasn't Lilith. It was Alara. I answered on the second ring. "She's having a meltdown," her sister said without preamble. "Arthur left, took an Uber, blocked her before they even pulled out of the parking lot." I stared out the windshield, the car's gentle hum filling the silence. "Did she admit it?" "Not at first," Alara replied. "But when her aunt asked who Caleb was and why he kept calling her the second choice, she cracked. Blamed you. Said you ambushed her. She's already rewriting the whole night, playing the victim." "She's good at that," I muttered. "No, Sam, she's desperate. There's a difference now. You cut off her oxygen." I rubbed my face trying to process what that meant. Is she still there? No, she left 10 minutes ago. But here's the part you're not going to like. Ilara paused. She's headed to your apartment. I laughed, a dry, bitter sound. Of course she is. She's not going there to apologize. Ilara's voice hardened. She's going to spin this. She's going to say you embarrassed her out of jealousy, that none of it was what it looked like. She's wasting her breath. Maybe, Ilara conceded. But Sam, I've seen her talk her way out of worse. That was the first time I felt a true cold panic, not because I was scared of her words, but because I knew how terrifyingly convincing she could be when she played the broken, misunderstood soul. She was a master at finding the hairline cracks in your confidence and squeezing through. I thanked Ilara, hung up, and drove straight home. She was already inside when I got there. I didn't even know how. Probably still had a spare key from months ago. She was sitting on the edge of my couch, clutching the engagement ring box like it was her last bargaining chip. You made a fool out of both of us tonight, she said, her voice trembling. Mascara smudged just enough to look tragic, not sloppy. But we can fix this. We can tell people it was a miscommunication. Caleb was never... I cut her off. Stop. You're not talking to someone who still believes in you. She flinched just for a second, but I saw it. I read the messages, Lilith. I saw the files. I spoke to people. I gave you the space to come clean, and you filled it with more lies. I panicked, she whispered, her gaze dropping. I didn't mean for it to go that far. You booked flights, I countered, my voice flat. You reserved hotel rooms. You had backup plans for your backup plans. That's not panic. That's choreography. Her face hardened. And what, Sam? You think you're the victim here? I know I am, I said, calm as ever, but I'm not staying one. Then I did something she never expected. I walked to the kitchen counter, grabbed a small padded envelope, and handed it to her. What's this? She asked, suspicious. Something you left behind in the guest room. She opened it. Inside was the last birthday card I ever gave her, the one with "Can't wait to build forever with you," written in ink. I'd rewritten it 3 times because the first drafts weren't perfect. I'm done, I said. Take that too. Take all of it. Just leave. But she didn't leave. She sat there frozen until a slow, deliberate knock came at the door. And what happened next? Neither of us could have seen it coming. The knock was slow, deliberate, as if whoever stood on the other side wasn't in any rush. Lilith froze, still clutching the birthday card I'd handed her, as if it might save her from drowning. Her eyes darted from the door to me, a silent question. Are you expecting anyone? I wasn't, but I had a terrible sinking feeling that the universe was about to deliver something both cruel and profoundly just. I opened the door without asking who it was. Standing there was a man I didn't recognize, perhaps mid-40s, dressed in a navy coat and a fitted scarf, exuding the air of someone who had just left a gallery or an expensive hotel lounge. He looked past me, his gaze locking immediately with Lilith's. She whispered his name before I could form the question. Marcus. He offered a small, weary smile. Hello, Lilith. I stepped aside, utterly unprepared for the silent drama unfolding. Marcus Thorne walked in with the calm authority of someone who had rehearsed this moment for a very long time. Lilith, caught in the headlights, looked genuinely shocked, not the practiced, tragic version I'd seen earlier at the party. Her mask finally cracked. She stood quickly, the birthday card slipping to the floor like a forgotten prop. I didn't know you were in town, she said, her voice trembling. I didn't know you were engaged again, he replied evenly. Imagine my surprise when your sister called me. I turned to Ilara, who had apparently been playing her own long game. I didn't know what she'd told Marcus or how she'd found him, but I was suddenly captivated. And so was Lilith, though her interest was pure, unadulterated panic. Marcus looked at me and extended a hand. Sorry to intrude. I won't stay long, but I think you deserve to hear this too. I shook his hand. You've got the floor. Lilith tried to intercept. Marcus, don't do this. It's complicated. No, he said, his eyes narrowing. What you did to me was complicated. What you've done since, that's just predictable. Then he turned back to me. I dated Lilith 5 years ago. We lived together, talked about getting married. She told me she wanted stability, Something real. I believed her. But right before I proposed, I found out she was seeing someone else. Not just once. It was a months-long affair with a colleague, a married one. Lilith stepped forward. That was a long time ago. Marcus didn't blink. It's never a long time ago for the people you leave in ruins. Something shifted inside me, as if Marcus was handing me the vocabulary for emotions I hadn't been able to name. She told me I made her feel invisible, Marcus continued, that I didn't challenge her. She said she needed chaos to feel alive. I guess she still does. Lilith opened her mouth, but Marcus cut her off. You don't get to talk now. I flew here to stop this pattern from ruining another person's life. You're brilliant at making people think they're special, Lilith, but all you ever do is drain them. She stood there stunned. No more excuses. No more scripts. Just silence. I'm leaving, he said, turning back to me. I just wanted you to know that none of this is new, and none of this is your fault. Then he handed me a thick envelope, in case she claims I made this up. Inside were photos, screenshots, plane tickets, letters, all dated, all proof. He left without another word. Lilith didn't speak either. She simply collapsed onto the couch, burying her head in her hands. I could see it, the cracks finally deepening into something irreversible. Not because I was angry, but because she couldn't lie fast enough to outrun the truth anymore. But I wasn't done, because I had one last thing to say and one final card to play. She didn't move. After Marcus left, Lilith sat on the couch as if gravity had suddenly quadrupled. No more spinning words, no more half-truths, just quiet, a profound, almost sacred silence. The kind of silence you don't interrupt because, for the first time, it's finally honest. I stood there, not with satisfaction, but with an immense clarity. She looked up at me once, her eyes glassy, her voice barely audible. You always believed in me more than I did. I nodded. That, I realized, had been the very core of the problem. There was no victory in her collapse, no joy in her unraveling. But there was relief in knowing I no longer had to carry the crushing weight of someone else's dishonesty, as if it were my burden to fix. She asked if we could talk someday. I told her, maybe, but not now and probably not ever. I packed her things that night, not angrily, but carefully, respectfully. The way you box up something you once treasured, something you now understand cannot be a part of your future. When she left the next morning, she didn't slam the door. She simply whispered, I hope you find someone who sees you the way you saw me. I didn't answer, because someone already did. 3 months later, my life truly began. I found myself at a cozy bookstore event I almost skipped entirely. I stood in the back, nursing a cup of bitter coffee, wondering why I'd even come. And then I met her. Nia Evander. A children's book illustrator with paint-stained fingers and an awkward, infectious laugh that made everyone around her feel instantly at home. She asked me what I did. I told her, I used to plan a wedding. She blinked, then smiled, a genuine warmth radiating from her. I used to be engaged to a guy who cheated on me with his guitar instructor. So, same. We laughed. It wasn't love at first sight. It was something better. It was real, slow, curious, built on truths, not illusions. I told her everything over time, and she didn't flinch. She just listened. And one night, as we walked home in the rain, she took my hand and said, You didn't deserve what happened, Sam, but I'm glad you're here now. So am I. Sometimes the best closure isn't slamming a door behind you. It's walking through a better one that was open all along.